Oh my gosh, it's finally here. The new Force update 3.0.5. We've been waiting for it, complaining about it, bitching about the fact that Akai maybe forgot about the Force. And just a small side, Akai, you literally have some of the worst customer service and communication that I've ever seen. But that said, this update is really amazing. Kind of knocked my socks off with regard to how much some of these things have been improved. All right, well, if you're new to this channel, my name's Jonathan Hadel and I make music as Pink Buddha, and I had this series called Akai Force Fridays, and honestly I kind of just gave up on it after a bit because I was getting really bored with where the Force was at. And with this new update, I'm excited to dive back in because there are some amazing improvements that I want to get into. Now, I'm going to do a video on each of the major big improvements that have come out for this, but we're going to start with the changes for chopping samples, which is a small change. And when I saw the first video on it, I was like, oh my God, this is exactly what I've been hoping for. The MPC has the ability to be able to take samples and assign those automatically while you're chopping to different pads. And I saw them doing that. I was like, this is what I've been wanting. Fortunately, under further inspection, it falls short of where I would hope it would be. And though I hate to kind of start off on a bad foot, without further ado, here's the stuff on chopping samples. I'm going to come in here to record something real quick. My microphone. Akai, sometimes you really suck, but you're doing better. All right, let's keep this. I'm going to go to sample edit, and here's my sample. Little icon on with the headphones to be able to hear this. Akai, sometimes you really suck, but you're doing better. All right, what I often like to do initially is to process this and get it normalized so that the volume's up higher. That's a little bit easier to work with. Akai, sometimes you really suck, but you're doing better. That's just the first thing that came to mind. Okay, let's chop this up. To do so, you click on this little new icon up here that has the 9 pads. This here needs to be on chop. Now, for the life of me, I can't figure out what these 2 buttons are. I experimented with them a whole bunch of times. Both of them seem to do the exact same thing, which is start this sequence. Akai. So they do the same thing. Akai, sometimes you really suck, but... And I don't know why this one is kind of primed. Maybe that's a hint that you're supposed to push that first. My impression is you kind of start it this way and then you get the Akai, sometimes you really suck, but you're doing better. And then you can click in the timing that you want for that. That's a lot easier than doing it on the screen where you used to have to push the slice button at first. So I like that. And I saw them doing that. I thought what would be really great, and unfortunately this does not do, is to be able to assign these to any pad that you touch. So as the sample was playing, you chop it up by touching wherever you want. It only goes in order. So it goes from left to right on the first row, then the second row and third row, and there's no way around it. Again, I don't understand why that's the case, but that's the main difference. So that's kind of it for this improvement. But as long as we're here, let me talk about what I like to do next when I'm chopping samples. And one of the key distinctions that you need to think about is whether or not you want to link the slices or not to link them. Let me explain the difference. Linking means that each of the start and stop points for each of these slices are interrelated. So the end point for slice number 1 is the beginning for slice number 2, and so on. So if you change, let's say, the end point for slice number 2, it's going to change the start point for slice number 3. I usually leave the link slices off. The only reason that I link slices is if I'm chopping up a piece of music and I want all the slices to be right on the beat. And for that situation, it works great. But not linking the slices allows you to be able to have some nuance in maybe having some of these pads or slices overlapping with each other. So I usually leave that off. Now, the other key question is whether or not when you are going to convert this, whether or not you're going to convert drum track using slices or if you're going to do a new track with new samples. Here's the difference between the two. A new drum track using slices is essentially taking one sample and then coming up with slices for that. The new track with new samples means that it takes all these slices and creates entirely different samples for them. Here are the pros and cons and why you might want to use one method over another. Using one sample and then having slices, which is the first method, a new drum track using slices, is going to save on memory because you're not creating a bunch of new samples by doing this process. The disadvantage is that you don't get to do very many changes to it after you create a new track. And if you want different pads or different slices to be pretty dramatically different from the other slices, then this option, the new drum track using slices, is not going to work as well for you. The second one gives you more options, but again, it takes up more memory because you're creating more slices. What I usually do is do the second one because I'm not recording a tremendous amount of stuff that requires me to have all this extra memory. And it doesn't use up that much memory either. So I usually do a new track with new samples. Now I'm not going to do that yet because there's also another decision point that you need to come to with this. And that's whether or not you want to do all your editing here before you convert it to a new track or after you convert it to a new track. What I usually do is get it to be as close as I want it to be, convert it to a new track, and I don't crop the samples so that I can go back and easily change it later. I usually also like to leave the knobs on the screen so I can just use these knobs to adjust the start or stop points. So now that I have them about where I want them to be, I push the shift button and push convert. I'm going to do a new track with new samples. For now, I'm going to not to crop the samples. And when you do that, creating this new track here. Akai, sometimes you really suck, but you're doing better. So if I want to, I can come back in and edit the start and stop points of this. If I was to crop the samples, then it's going to eliminate all this extra amount, and then you're stuck with what you got. You really suck. Sometimes, Kai, but you're doing. Let's have a little fun with this and put some effects on it. Sometimes, Kai, you really, Kai, sometimes doing. Now let's add a little beat in here. You really better, Kai. Sometimes you really suck. 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 Sometimes you really Kai. Sometimes you really suck. Oh yeah, this is totally ripping. Enough of that. Okay, admittedly, this is kind of a weak place to start because that change was so minor, but there are some massive things in here that we are definitely going to get into. So stay tuned because we're going to go deep in some of the improvements in this new update. You're not going to regret it.